So I'm here with Joshua Foer. How's it going?
It's going well. How are you, Mark?
Good. I loved your talk.
Thank you.
Yesterday. It was fantastic. It was one of my favorites. And like I said earlier when we were with John Ronson, you, John, and Chip Kidd's presentations were my three favorites.
Oh, that's so nice. They killed it. I actually didn't get to see Chip's, but I saw John's, and it was really terrific.
Yeah, it was great. So anyway, I'm sure a lot of Boing Boing readers know what your book's about, but maybe you could describe the book.
And well, it's called Moonwalking with Einstein, and it is about, well, the thread that goes through it is this kind of strange subculture of people who compete in competitive memorizing contests, and memorize incredible things, hundreds of random numbers, decks of playing cards, etc., and uses that to sort of peel off and get into the science of memory and the history of memory, philosophy of memory, cultural history, and yeah, that's what the book's about.
And so one of the things, well, there are a few things that you brought up that were interesting. One was that having a good memory was really a much more important thing in antiquity than it is today.
Right, well, because we don't have to remember anymore. We've got stuff like this. We've got smartphones to remember for us. And that's actually an old story. I mean, we have invented a series of technologies over the last few millennia that have allowed us to basically make it easier and easier to outsource remembering to technology.
And one of the other things I thought was interesting was you talked about some guy who was able to memorize a random string of 4,000 binary digits, zeros and ones combined randomly in 30 minutes.
Right, that's Ben Pridmore, three-time world memory champion.
And he recited those without making an error?
Right, yeah.
What was his technique? Did he share that with you?
Yeah, sure, and I talk about this in the book. Basically what he does is converts these strings of binary digits into utterly ludicrous images in his mind's eye, and then he puts each of these images in a different spot in an imagined building called a memory palace. And he uses a really kind of complicated technique for doing that. It allows him to, I think he turns something like 30 binary digits into one, compresses them into one image. It's a kind of code. And through practice, he got really, really good at it.
So he looks at combinations of letters and thinks, so a 0100 could be a lion.
Right, although it's actually even more complicated than that. But that's the basic principle.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, the other thing I wanted to ask you about was your Atlas Obscura.
Obscura, yeah.
Yeah, talk about that. Tell me what it is and how
Sure.
people can get involved.
Atlas Obscura is a user-generated, user-submitted website that's a guide to all of the world's curious and wondrous places. And the notion is, if you're going to Paris or wherever and you want to know where's all the really wonderful, weird stuff that's not in your lonely planet, this is where you find it. And we depend on people sharing their knowledge of wondrous and curious places. So I hope Boing Boing readers will check it out. And we have this annual event called Obscura Day, which happens in April. And all over the world, people will be going out en masse to do and curious things and explore curious places and have curious adventures, and people should check out our website and find an event near them or organize an event near them.
What's one of your favorite curious places that you've explored?
So many. I think my most recent favorite is this river in Colombia called the Caño Cristales, which is, they call it the Rainbow River. It's the river of 5 colors. It's red and green and blue. It's crazy. It doesn't look like it's on planet Earth. And me and my partner from Atlas Obscura, Dylan Thuris, we trekked out there last year to go check it out. And it was like an incredible adventure. And we wrote about it for Slate Magazine and on atlasobscura.com.
Cool.
Yeah.
One of my favorite obscure places is the Chislehurst Caves outside of London. Have you heard of these? They're like chalk stone tunnels that were carved during World War II, and people would live in there during the blackouts.
Oh, man.
And they have like a cathedral in there, and they painted the walls with stained glass patterns using luminescent different color inks.
Can you still see them?
Yeah, you can take a train. It's like about a 30-minute train ride out of London.
We should absolutely do an Obscura Day expedition out there. Do you have to pay to get in?
Yeah,
okay.
And you can get a tour. And oh, here's the cool thing. When I went, this was like in the 80s, you're handed a little kerosene lantern, and everybody holds one, and this guy leads you through, who is kind of this half-blind, interesting guy. His eyes are like so cataract over, I didn't think he could see, but maybe he felt his way through the cave. But he was an excellent tour guide.
Well, so then consider it done. On April 28th, Obscura Day, we're going to have a bunch of people meeting in London, whatever the train station is that goes to this place, and we're going to take over a train and go visit these caves, because that sounds totally awesome and totally like a perfect Obscura Day expedition.
Very
so
cool.
Check out the website and we'll figure out all the details.
Okay, and once again, Joshua Foer, thank you so much for the interview, and congratulations on the great TED Talk.
Thank you very much.
And everybody, if you haven't checked out his book, it's terrific.